Narayanam Tam Shri Guru Charanam Vande Ramana Krishnaya Mukade Rupanuga Bhakti Damsha Kripamurti Narayanam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindho Yevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I have to mention unto the lotus feet of our most worshipful Sri Gurudev, Nityanila Pravisha Om Vishnupada Krishna Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gopal Maharaj, Gautama Guru Maharaj, and all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So we continue with our daily reading of the which book?
Chaitanya Chittamrita.
So every day we try to get literally to nectar. This is nectar of Chaitanya's teachings. So what did we read about yesterday? What? We should be like enthusiastic, like to listen to all these nectar. I know I'm boring people doing this, but there has to be some enthusiasm, This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So by doing this every day, we are relating to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he is teaching us. So what is our topic so far this time? Reading about it. So many things yesterday to read. But at least, like you know where we are. What? Oh my God. Why are we here then? So we are in this section now about all discussions about Gyan. Okay? So what, okay, how many types of Gyan?
There is 5.
Is that sure or not?
I'm not sure.
Okay, there are 5.
Yes,
So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining, he's telling this. Because this section now, he's discussing about different types of Gyan. Okay, so first one, what?
It's
Karma
Karma Gyan.
What do you mean Karma Gyan?
Like senses, by senses.
Karma Gyan.
I missed some.
How is it? He knows, he's the
Okay,
Pandit.
so the first one is Gyan from your senses, like, coming from your senses, by using your senses.
What is the name?
Indriyartha.
Indriyartha.
Indriyartha Gyans.
Indriyartha Gyan.
So knowledge used from the senses, meaning there's the gross senses, the external, and then the internal senses in the mind. All of them is all come from this. All knowledge coming from that is called Indriyartha. So this is a direct perception, perception. Okay, then second, what's the second type of knowledge? Moral knowledge. So the third one, Ishvara Gyan, knowledge of controller. There's concept of controller now, concept of God. Okay, then from this Ishvara Gyan, if someone continue to be restless and finding more, and especially he takes shelter of like logic and and maybe some misleading sources, then you can go to the fourth one, which is Brahmagyan. But someone sincere and like maybe by pious, some accumulated like stupidity, he is associated with some devotees, then he can upgrade, his Ishvara Dhyan to Shuddha Dhyan. So Brahma Dhyan, that's a big discussion. We've already gone through that. This is what? Brahma Dhyan. Like mostly like the knowledge of the impersonal like Brahma, mostly from the conception of Maya bodies or Viparta bodies. Now, yesterday we were reading the fifth one. It's about Shuddha Dhyan, real knowledge. So he's saying in Shuddha Dhyan, how many types are there also? There are also 5 types in Shuddha Dhyan. So, and so far we're just in the first type. There is the Paresha Bhava. Paresha. Paresha meaning Para, Isha. Isha means controller and Para means supreme controller. Anubhava is realization. Realization of Paresha. Paresha Tattva. Meaning realization of God. But then this has also three stages or 3 types. The lowest, of course, is what is it called? Brahmanubhava. This Brahmanubhava, realization of Brahman, meaning the impersonal aspect. Then higher than that is Paramatma Anubhava, realization of Paramatma. Are you following? And then highest, of course, is realization of Bhagavan. So we've gone through all that, we're just reviewing now. So then, when we talk about Bhagavan, there's saying that mainly 2 kinds, in an aspect of God's personality. There is the Aishwarya aspect and then there's the Madhurya aspect. And there's also something like in between. But mainly there's 2. Those in the Aishwarya aspect, some people that perform like sadhana for realizing this Aishwarya aspect of God. And then they realize that what is the result of their realization? They realize Narayana, the supreme like opulence, like this. And those the path of like realizing the sweetness, then they will realize Krishna in Raj. Now there's also somewhere in the middle of that, there's Aishwarya, and that is Krishna in Varnavapura. Now, so I think some important points yesterday is that when we talk about realizing God, Bhakti is making the point that logic and reasoning has no power for understanding. You understand? Because many things you cannot reconcile by logic and reasoning. Our evidence is really according to the Shastra. So many things in Shastra there reconciling many things that we by logic may seem contradictory. So what else did we discuss? I think we ended here with as far as Bhagavat Anubhava, realization of Bhagavan. He's saying there's 3 divisions. 3 divisions. Whether it is realizing the opulence or the sweetness aspect. There will be 3 divisions. First one is Swarup Gata Bhagavat Anubhava. Then there's Shakti Gata Bhagavat Anubhava, and the third one is Kriya Gata Bhagavat Anubhava. That's where we ended yesterday.
Kriya?
So many like long terms here. Okay, first is Swarup Gata, that is realizing his Swarup, realizing his form. So whether his form is in Aishwarya aspect or Madhurya aspect, but realizing the form of Bhagavan. Okay. When you say Aishwarya aspect, Narayan, then it's the form of like 4 arms, like this, Or Krishna, meaning all the one with flute, peacock feather.
That is Madhurya, no?
So, okay, that's one division. Second is Shakti Gata, realization of his potency, his Shakti. And third one, Kriya Gata, Bhagavan Anubhava, realization of Bhagavan's pastimes, activities, what are his activities. Okay, so that's where we ended yesterday. We can continue now reading. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, the eternal form of Bhagavan. So the term for that actually is Vigraha. So the Vigraha of Bhagavan is, what do you think? He says here, so the Vigraha of Bhagavan is Bhagavan himself. His form is he himself. So like us, we say in this world, we say you are not the body. You know? Your body now is your form. But then that is not you.
So this is
like
covering.
But when you talk about Bhagavan, it's like he is his body. You know, like this. So, Bhaktivinoda, he said, Bhagavan has 6 intrinsic qualities which are related to his form. And this is what we mentioned yesterday. Who knows? First one.
The fame, beauty,
First
power.
one. First, Aishwarya. Aishwarya. Aishwarya, what do you mean
And six
Aishwarya?
activities are surprising, like
What do you mean Aishwarya?
Awesomeness.
awesomeness.
Yes, the quality that will make you wonder. Okay, then next one is what? After Aishwarya, Virya.
Power.
Virya means strength, power. Virya. Then what is next?
Beauty,
Yash. Yash.
fame,
Fame. Then fourth, Shri, beauty.
beauty,
Then knowledge. That's Gyan, Vairagya. Knowledge and reduction. So this is 6. He said these are all related to his form. This 6. So he said in material objects there is a difference between the qualities and the possessor of those qualities. However, in Bhagavan, who is beyond matter, there is no such difference. Because you know how we reconcile this. When we talk about Bhagavan, he is absolute. Him and anything related to him is non-different. So like he is Nami and his name is not different. So now Nami is not different. His name and he himself is one, like he himself. So despite this fact, okay, so that is tattva, that is reality, that he and his qualities not different. He is his quality. His form and he is the same. His name and he is the same, not different. But despite this fact, there is a special quality which governs all other qualities. It is most prominent and manifests itself as the foundation of all other qualities. This quality is Shri, beauty. Okay, so he's saying there's 6 qualities. All of course is not different in Bhagavan himself. But among this, the most prominent is Shri. And he said this is foundation of all other qualities. Beauty. Although Shri is included amongst the aforementioned 6 qualities of Bhagavan, it is considered to be the foundation of all the other qualities. Shri, or beauty, is the ultimate potency embodied in Bhagavan's form. It is by this beauty that all the other qualities are fixed and controlled. Did you get that? Did you get it? Actually, it turns out like very deep. Also, things to understand with this, whatever he said. He said this beauty is the ultimate power of all the other qualities. I said, Shri is the ultimate potency, the ultimate power embodied in the form of Bhagavan. It is by this beauty that all other qualities are fixed and controlled. It is through this quality of beauty that all of his other qualities, such as indivisibility, being completely powerful, possessing unlimited strength, being unlimitedly famous, being all-knowing, and being the regulator of all other controllers, because of this Shri, then all these are properly harmonized or adjusted. Those who do not accept the Lord's eternal form are unable to perform bhakti, for they do not consider his service to be an eternal occupation. Did you get that? It said those who do not accept the eternal form of Bhagavan. Who don't accept that Bhagavan has an eternal form? Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, their idea is that he is not a person, he has no form. He said, they do not accept the eternal form, and therefore, what happens? They cannot perform bhakti. Because unless you have that understanding that God is a person, then there is no sense for making any activities, like loving relation, so there's no performance of bhakti. Why? Because they will not consider his service as your occupation, your eternal dharma. So, Bhaktivinoda said, the inconceivable form of Bhagavan manifests itself like a spiritual sun, illuminating everything in his eternal abode while simultaneously acting as a bliss in his eternal abode, while simultaneously acting like the moon. What's the difference between the moon and the sun? The sun is too hot. So the sun, you don't really become happy. You're sweating. But with the sun, everything becomes bright. The moon is actually cooling. And some people actually, this is a side point. They actually made some experiment. Like they're measuring the temperature. The temperature of the space directly hit by the rays of the moon, and something like within the shape not hit by the moon. They actually see that it's cooler. And really, the moon has cooling effects. It's showing some experiments like that. So, materialistic persons consider that this form of the Lord, like other forms, must also be material. Why do you say like this? Because, materialists, what is, by their experience, that is for them applicable for everything else. So, everything that has form, that's material. So now when you talk about God as a form, so that means, no, that's material. Because for them, what they see now as material, God has to be opposite of that. So now, material, anything that is form is material. So, God does not have a form. Otherwise, it cannot be material. Understand? So for them, anything that has a form is material. So, materialistic persons, they cannot consider that this form of the Lord is not like other forms in this world. That it's not material. A person within the material creation identify each other based on their different bodies. Then similarly, in the spiritual world, the spiritual form of Bhagavan remains unique to the other spiritual forms. The spiritual form of Bhagavan is the supreme attractor and master of all other spiritual forms. You get that? So like here, this world actually is a perverted reflection of the real world. So here you can see, all of us, we have our material form. Of course, we know this is not our real form. But based on this, we relate to each other. And, you can see, he has a form like Mexican body, he's like, English body, Russian body, and like that. And then they have their own uniqueness, and that's how you identify and relate. Like this. In the spiritual world, it's the same principle. Like this. Everyone has their unique swarup. And their Swarup actually is based on what is the relation with Bhagavan. Bhagavan also has his own Swarup. Now, what's the difference between the form of Bhagavan and everyone else? Of course, all their forms are the same, meaning as far as, in essence, they're all like spiritual forms. But he's saying that the spiritual form of Bhagavan is the supreme attractor and master of all the other spiritual forms. All of them are spiritual forms. But the form of Bhagavan, that is the supreme attractor of all the other forms. Everyone is all, so he points out to his original statement. He's saying that this beauty is the main power of that is in that form of Bhagavan. It is not that variety is only seen in the material world and is thus confined only in matter. It is not that variety has arisen from matter and so must also be destroyed along with the creation. As matter is simply a reflection of spirit, then all variety seen here must have its spiritual origin also. Following. That original spiritual variegatedness also manifests itself in a reflected manner within the mirror material creation. If that variegatedness was not there in spiritual creation of Bhagavan, then there would not have been a possibility of creation, and the jiva would not exist, nor be able to differentiate itself as separate from earth matter. Due to this unique spiritual variety, the potency, desire, and actions of Bhagavan are all exceptional. Even though the all-spiritual form of Bhagavan is also separate from other tattvas in the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, he is simultaneously fully present and all-pervading within the material creation also. Thus, the Vigraha, the form of Bhagavan, is supernatural, meaning not material, transcendental, and inconceivable. So that's just how we establish. When we talk about the form of Bhagavan, this is not material, it's completely like spiritual. And it's inconceivable, because you may say, oh, he has a form. When you say someone has a form, that means, oh, he's limited to that space where his form is. And generally, that's why a lot of people, like my body, they don't accept that. But how can God have a form? Because that means he's not limited to that place. But Bhagavan is everywhere like that. So this is the speciality of Bhagavan's form. Yeah. He has a form, but at the same time, he is everywhere like this. So our mind cannot conceive that. That's why it's inconceivable. So the one form of the Lord, he said, in this sun-like form of Bhagavan, the impersonal Brahma is likened to his rays, which give rise to innumerable material universes. He is also present in the form of the Paramatma, and as such, he is the controller of the entire creation, as well as the individual souls within it. Even though he is all-pervading as both Brahma and Paramatma, still, the form of Bhagavan, who is eternally performing unique pastimes in the spiritual abode of Vaikuntha, is distinctly special. Following. So that's, when we talk about the form, that's all included. He has this impersonal form. He has this all-pervading, like Krishna everywhere, the Paramatma. But he has his own unique form also in the spiritual abode. So, where the Lord's opulence are predominantly displayed, then this form manifests in a particular manner. The one form of the Lord is the shelter of unlimited other forms, all performing separate pastimes. Where the sweetness of the Lord is predominantly manifest, then the Vigraha manifests eternally in Braj, in the form of Sri Krishna, who is absorbed in unlimited varieties of all spiritual, confidential, loving pastimes. So one is only able to realize these pastimes if Rasa Tattva has manifested in one's heart. Bhagavan's form is eternally perfect, or Nityasiddha. His all spiritual abode, or the Dham, his associates, paraphernalia, and spiritual time all assist him in his activities. This transcendental nectar, we call rasa, is to be relished by associating with those who themselves are relishing it. So who are these people relishing this rasa? They're called the Rasik devotees. Taking shelter of the form of Bhagavan, the constant, ever-fresh waves of his spiritually nectarian and loving pastimes are eternally rising. His swarup, his abode, his paraphernalia, assistance, and pastimes are all completely spiritual, eternal, immutable, free from defects, and the only desired object of all pure souls. So, did you get that? What did you understand from this? So, here, he is saying that, for one, Bhagavan has unlimited forms. Yeah, and according to how you relate to him, you will see a particular form, fitting for that. You know. So those who are in the mood of Aishwarya, then they will realize his form, in Aishwarya. So that's like Narayana and others. And those who are have their natural swarup as in Madhurya, meaning in sweetness, then they will realize that sweetness form of Krishna. But so his point here now, he said, one is only able to realize these pastimes of that Krishna or that Narayana or whatever, of that Bhagavan, because when you say he has form, he has activities, he has dham, he has all this like assistance, like this. So he has activities. So you only realize these things if you realize, or if it says in your heart, this rasa tattva manifests. So when you say, what does it mean? Like, if rasa tattva manifests in the heart, rasa tattva. So this truth about rasa. So when we say it manifests in the heart, that means it's not like when you study and like a theoretical study. When you say rasa tattva manifests in the heart, take note. There's just philosophical truths. Something like some discussion, like philosophy, then you understand. So these are generally we call tattva. But when you talk about rasa tattva, this is actually something taste that involves taste and actual experience. So it's not something like you just imagine. So when you say rasa tattva manifested in the heart, that means there's actual relish of. So when you say rasa, now this is not mentioned here, but this is just in passing. But really, when you talk about rasa, there's actual an experience of all these different ingredients. That now someone who has actual bhakti now begins to relish. So this rasa tattva is meaning this only manifests in the platform of when you're actually relishing praying. Only in the of praying. Okay? Because you say rasa comes when you realize your bhakti. In the stage of bhav, you realize your bhakti, your sthai bhav. That means you're fixed, permanent emotion, relation with God. So with that bhakti, then it will combine now with your experiences of other ingredients of rasa. Like Krishna himself is one ingredient, like this. You know? And all these different like udipans like related to Krishna, these are other ingredients. Your particular activity relating to that, that's also another ingredient. You know? So then all this relishment of this, then this is called rasa. So he said, you only realize these pastimes if really, we'll rephrase this then. You only realize these pastimes only when you have prayed. And then you actually begin to experience like the happiness from this praying. Now because you have actual experience, direct experience with Krishna. So his form, his dham, like everything, they're eternally perfect. And he said, all of these things, his dham, his form, his associates, they all assist him in all his activities. And he said, the nectar, this is only relished by the Rasik devotees, those who are actually expert in relishing. And you also can relish if you said associate with those Rasik devotees. Actually, we have to learn from them. So then Bhakti Thakur is saying that the only desired object of all the jivas, of all the pure jivas, so he said there, taking shelter of the form of Bhagavan, taking shelter of the form of Bhagavan, the constant ever-fresh waves of his spiritually nectarian and loving pastimes are eternally rising. His pastimes are full of nectar. You know? So this is only coming out from his form. Because without his form, then how does his pastimes manifest? So from his form, then he's creating all these pastimes with the help of his dham, his associates, and then all this nectar is like just emanating. Yeah? And then all these devotees who are relating to him, they're relishing all this nectar. So he said, his swarup, his abode, the paraphernalia, assistance, and pastimes, they're all completely spiritual, they're eternal, immutable, free from defects, and they are the only desired object of the pure jivas. Okay, so that's how he ended. So now he said, if one dislikes the material world, yet still does not have a complete conception of what exists beyond it, then one imagines a state in which all variety is absent. You follow me? A lot of people, of course, because maybe they have no association with the sick bhaktas, or it's unfortunate they have no association of any sources of information about like Bhagavan's Swarup also, like this. So they may come with some dislike of the material, or they don't like this material, and they may even come to a realization that this is not my home. I should not stay in this world like that. But they don't have a complete conception of what is there beyond the material. So then what happens? They imagine a state where there is no variety, you know, because that's how they see this world is like a place of variety, many forms and all these different varieties. So then the opposite must be the world beyond this. So then that's why they imagine, when you talk about not this material world, the spiritual world, it must be no variety in this. So without deep contemplation, one may conclude that the reality beyond this world must be diametrically opposed to this material world. Thus, it is formless. So in their imagination, then he said, that must be formless. So in the material world, we find forms change qualities, variety, shadows, action, and plurality. Thus, the reality being diametrically in opposition to this must be without form, without change, without qualities, without variety, without shape, without action, and quality. Some imagine the higher world to be the sum totality of all these opposite existences. However, after a subtle examination, it becomes clear that this conclusion is simply an imaginative product of material logic. Okay? And logic takes birth from, where is this logic coming from? Actually from matter. Of course, coming from the senses, but where is it all coming from? From matter. The result of such logical gymnastics is simply confusion and speculation, and the conclusion is simply imaginative, just imagination. So proper spiritual deliberation cannot be achieved through imagination. What to speak of giving us the ultimate conclusion? It cannot even touch it. So they cannot give any conclusion like this, because you cannot even touch this spiritual deliberation. So very well then, let us use logic and state the attributes or definition of both. So let's I'll read that again. He said, proper spiritual deliberation cannot be achieved through imagination. What to speak of giving the ultimate conclusion, you cannot even touch it. So, very well, then, let us use logic and state the attributes or definition of both. What is real and what is unreal. So, he said, impartial and undistorted logic will tell us that something non-existent is called, what do you mean? Something that does not exist is what? Not real, not reality. Okay, so the meaning is, that which does not exist is an unreality. And that which does exist, that object must be real. Okay. So if the world is not existent, then it is incorrect and completely useless to qualify it by a theory or try to understand it by varieties of laborious endeavors. You understand?
By varieties of what?
He said, if the world is non-existent, so then that means, if the world is not existent, that means it's not real. So then therefore, there is no use to do any endeavor, really, because it's not real. Right? So he's saying, that's what Bhakti is saying here, that if the world is non-existent, then it is incorrect and completely useless to qualify this world with a theory. Like now you make a theory to try to understand it by all these different, like sadhana, you know? Because it's not real, you're saying. So then why making all these endeavors to try to understand it? Because it doesn't exist anyway. So that's what this is the situation with like this Brahmavadis or Mayavadis. If there is an object, then it must have some characteristics. Right? So every object will definitely have the following characteristics. So when we say object, what's the term for that? Vastu. So a vastu will have the following characteristics. Number 1, existence. Number 2, qualities. Number 3, function. And 4, necessity. You understand? Now, Bhakti just like already, how do you call this? He has already analyzed this. Actually, we know that this is all coming from Mahaprabhu. That's why he's saying this nectar which is Mahaprabhu. And we know he's churned this from our Jiva Goswami and everything. So he said there are 4 characteristics. For a vastu, definitely they will have these 4 characteristics. So number 1, existence. Number 2, qualities. 3, function. And 4, necessity. So he will explain it here now, I think each one. So now he said, if existence is absent, then it becomes non-existent. And then the very object is not real. Understand? If there are no qualities, then the independent existence of an object cannot be established. Okay, so they go together. Because if someone has no existence, he will also have no quality. Or if someone has no qualities, then that means he doesn't exist. So really, he's not a possible. Then, if the object has no actions or function, then it will also be said to be unidentifiable or imaginary. Understand? So if an object has no activities or no function, no use, then you cannot really, it's something unidentifiable. So it's something imaginary, and if it has no necessity, what is necessity?
Purpose.
Some means.
Purpose.
Purpose. So he said, if it has no necessity, then the object itself is meaningless. Now the superior spiritual world is also an object, is also a vastu. Therefore, it must have existence. It must have the qualities, meaning the determinate factors, qualities. It must have function and necessity. How can one say that the superior spiritual world is a featureless nervous change diametrically opposed to the material, and still say that such a place truly exists? If one wants to say such a thing, then his conclusion will be nothing but useless argument. But if one takes the help of purified logic and reasoning, then one must say that the superior destination or spiritual world must be characterized as being completely free from the inherent defects of matter. Simply saying that it must be diametrically opposed to matter is an immature conclusion that will later act against you. Did you get that? So it's not enough to say that when you talk about the spiritual world, it is diametrically opposed to the material world. That's not enough. Because by that, then people, they make imagination, biology. And what is that? Because in the material world, there's varieties, so that is all diametrically opposed to the material world means there's no varieties. So this material world is there, we see existing. Also then the spiritual world doesn't exist then, like this. Or, so simply saying that it must be diametrically opposed to matter is an immature conclusion that later will act against you. Logically, we cannot say whether there exists any such contrary substance, place, or thing, because by definition, there is no existence of a non-object. Thus, why is it like that? Because the thing is, they say that this material world is not real. That's the main thing also. So then, by saying that this material world is not real, but then they say this world has form, all these qualities, function. And then it's like they say a non-object has existence. It's full of contradictions. So he said, logically, we cannot say whether there exists any such contrary substance, place, or thing, because by definition, there is no existence of a non-object. Thus, to say that such a viparit vastu meaning an opposite reality, exists will be a conclusion of drunkards. However, there is no fault in perceiving that the existing real vastu, the spiritual world, is distinct from matter due to being free from the rejectable and loathsome characteristics possessed of matter. You understand? So he's actually using all this description. Rejectable, we know what's rejectable. Like faith to be rejected. And what is loathsome? Something you hate, despise. So these are the qualities possessed or characteristics possessed of matter. Matter is completely rejectable and it's a loathsome.
Fit to be despised.
Fit to be despised.
What is despise?
And so he said, when you talk of matter, that these are the qualities. Meaning it's very imperfect, you know. And generally, you may have attachment to material things. Later, this attachment to material things will only make you suffer, you know. And therefore, later on, it's like, then you become angry with it and you reject it, like that. But when you talk about the spiritual world, then you see, it does not mean that it's completely like that means there's nothing there, like in their imagination. It's actually the same, but it is free from the defects that you see now in the material. It's free from these defects. So, the material instrument of logical reasoning, being completely unable to identify anything except matter, is unable to ascertain non-material reality. However, within the spiritual existence of the jiva is a special tendency towards spiritual realization. Did you get that? Here in this world, we have like this tool, like a material instrument. What is that? That we use that is which we use in our perception. What is that? This is material logical reasoning. This is like our tool. He said this logical reasoning, it is completely unable to identify anything except matter. Like this. This logical reasoning, it only can identify matter. Has no way to ascertain non-material reality. Like this. So then, he said, but within the existence of the jiva, there is a special tendency toward spiritual realization. And by saying this, he's saying that for spiritual realization, really, we don't require this logic. Logical reasoning is like a material tool. It cannot identify beyond matter. But within us, the jivas, we have our natural tendency for realizing this spiritual. By this, the jiva can realize to some small degree the existence, the qualities, activities, and necessity of the higher world. To say that there is no existence, qualities, activities, or necessity in the ultimate spiritual object or existence is to factually deny its very being. If rationalists abandon their evil tradition and review the subject matter in an unprejudiced manner, then they can easily understand it. Now, who is he referring to here? Rabindranath Tagore. He said, all these people who are into this, he called them rationalists. Their concept of understanding is only as much as whatever logic and reasoning that they have. They cannot go beyond that. Like many philosophers or like atheists or scientists or whatever, they don't accept, or even spiritualists, but like they're actually like youngins, so they have no clear understanding of the real, like the spiritual reality, because they only take as much as how they can understand by logic, and they can make many different kinds of philosophy, like this, and teach. So he said, if they only abandon their tradition. And he called it evil tradition. And they revealed this subject matter. This subject matter that he's discussing now. He said, if they just reveal this in unprejudiced manner, meaning like not narrow-minded, like open, then he said they can easily understand this. That's why in the very beginning of this book, Bhakti he's saying that this book is for everyone. It's for the dumb and also for the so-called intelligent people. He's saying like that. So, now continuing, Bhakti he says, after realizing that Bhagavan is equipped with his potencies, then all the doubts of the jiva are dispelled. The Shakti of Bhagavan is inconceivable, beyond logic, and immeasurable. That potency is actually non-different from the Swarup of Bhagavan. Yet, in order to act, it takes a separate form. Did you get that? So, he said Bhagavan, when you say Bhagavan, he has Shakti. And this Shakti, if you realize the Shakti, then all your doubts are dispelled. You understand? So, what is the Shakti of Bhagavan? First, he's saying this is inconceivable, beyond logic. Yet, in order to act, it takes a separate form. So, the limited jurisdiction of human intelligence will never be able to form a conclusion regarding the subject of the Lord's Parashakti if he persists in his obstinacy of trying to establish his own conclusion, like a donkey. He will eventually become quite despondent. This Parashakti is possessed of contradictory qualities, which are all controlled by and reside within her. Desire and desirelessness, distinction with qualities and non-distinction without qualities, to be localized and all-pervading, detached yet full of attachment, inactive and active, dependent and independent, being a master and servant, all-knowing and bewildered, possessed of a human-like size and yet unlimited, self-satisfied and full of endeavor. All these and other contradictory qualities take shelter of and find reconciliation and harmony within that Parashakti. Did you get that? So that's how we explain. Bhagavan, if the Bhagavan, he is Shaktiman. And by his Shakti, everything is reconciled. All these contradictory qualities is all there by his potency. And of course, this potency takes a special shape. Personalized, less natural grant. By the spiritual influence of the Parashakti, Bhagavan's Swarup, form, pastime places, and all the assistant paraphernalia are eternally manifested. By a portion of that Parashakti. So his only thing, listen, he's saying, by the influence of the Parashakti, he's talking about the Parashakti. He's complete, that full, that spiritual power. Then Bhagavan's Swarup, his form, his pastime places, and all the assistants paraphernalia, they're all manifested. Okay, by this Parashakti. But then he said, by a portion of that Parashakti. So just a portion of that Parashakti, namely, what is that? The Jiva Shakti. The Jiva Shakti, then innumerable bound and liberated Jivas are manifest. Being bound since time without beginning. By the shadow portion of this Parashakti, named Maya, innumerable material universes are manifested and prepared, just like hotels or temporary residence for the Vada Jivas. Are you following? So by the influence of a portion of this Parashakti called the Sandini Shakti, the various all spiritual abodes, we call the dhams, along with the spiritual time, localities, and varieties of spiritual paraphernalia, they have all arisen, they have manifested. So that's, what is that portion of Parashakti? This is the Sandini. Sandini meaning existence potency. So that's why I said, by the influence of a portion of this Varashakti, this Andini potency, then all the dhams, along with like the spiritual time, the varieties of like associates and paraphernalia, they have manifested. Now another portion of this Varashakti, namely Sambhit Shakti, manifests in various service moods, all the different bhavs, all the moods, or relationships, and knowledge, by which the varieties of loving relationships with the Lord appropriately manifest in different spiritual abodes. What does this mean? When we say Sambhit Shakti, what is that? That is the cognizance. By this, then you have a specific understanding of relationships. Because that's the knowledge in the spiritual world. Like, oh, Krishna is like he's the beloved Radharani, he's the son of Nanda Baba, like this. He is my friend, or he is my lover, that is like all this relationship. So all these moods, all these relationships, this is all manifested by the function of Shakti called Sambhit. Then, by the portion of the Parashakti, namely Ladini Shakti, all varieties of appropriate, all blissful and tasteful activities are manifest. So these are all the different activities. So that's why it's called Kriya Shakti. Another name for this Ladini Shakti is Kriya Shakti. And by this, one is able to express his love. So this is Bhakti. Like this. All this Anushilan, Krishna Anushilan. So all this cultivation, favorable cultivation for service of Krishna. So that is Ladini Shakti. Briefly, we should know that the objects associated with Bhagavan are all manifested by his potency. Together. He said all the objects associated with Bhagavan are all manifested by his potency. That is, of course, we can say there, and in a way, we take shortcut. We say, oh, they're manifested by God. But actually, that is manifested by his potency. The description of the activities performed upon realizing Bhagavan will be discussed in a later section. So when you say activities performed upon realization of Bhagavan, this realization of Bhagavan, this is referred to as rasa. This will be discussed in a later section. We will not elaborate on this topic here. Okay, so this is a big discussion. But okay, so that ends the first section as far as realization, like Shuddha Gyan. Yeah, Shuddha Gyan. So is real knowledge. So one type of that is Bhagavan Anubhava. Realization of, what's it called? Paresha Anubhava. Realization of the Paraisha, the Supreme Person. So that discussion ends here. We will continue tomorrow. Next will be the Swanubhava. This is called self-realization. So this is part of real knowledge. So one is realizing God. Another one, second one is realizing yourself also, self-realization. And there's three more. They're all part of this real knowledge. So we're just entering that second type of Shuddha Gyan. Okay, Raj Gurudev ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Thakur ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Prabhu ki Jai.